Hey all, Milvo here. So 2021, I'm going to do a educational series and a number of different videos. They're going to be made up of 3 parts as they go through. Just going to try something different for 2021, and my target is to have every video within 5 minutes. I've not been great so far, so let's see how we go. This 3-part series, I'm going to discuss the difference between cacao and chocolate, and hopefully you get to understand the differences and the choices they're making when you consume either or both cacao and chocolate. So this week, I'm going to purely be focused on cacao. First up, a quick history on the importance and age of the powerful plant medicine that's known as cacao. So cacao has existed as a plant medicine for thousands of years. Archaeologists have discovered traces of cacao in clay pots that date back to the time of the Olmecs, which is about 5,000 plus years ago. Cacao grows in a pod and is made up of an outer skin, a white inner flesh, and then beans. So initially, only the white flesh was actually consumed. So way back, they actually threw away all the beans and just consumed the white flesh. However, it was realized that the actual beans, that's where all the power, that's where it really existed. So once the value of the cacao bean was discovered, it actually was starting to be used as trade currency, similar to how we now trade gold. It was actually seen as a very precious commodity, particularly within the Mayan, and it was also when the Spanish turned up. There was a lot of trading that actually took place around Mesoamerica. Over time, it was consumed as a drink as well as an offering to the gods. So to place importance was only the rich, so the people, the kings, the queens, and those at the top of the hierarchy could actually have cacao, or anyone who was willing to sacrifice their life to a god was then given cacao as part of the sacrificial process. In those days, going to understand 100% of the people were religious. So a sacrifice was actually seen as a good thing, and that's what took place. So they celebrated by being able to have the cacao drink, which is amazing. The cacao is also known as theobroma. So when you look at the Greek translation, that theos is God, and broma actually means food. So it's actually food of the gods in a very loose translation. So within cacao, there's also a chemical known as anandamide. Anandamide, it's actually taken from the Sanskrit word ananda, which means bliss, joy, nirvana, delight. Anandamide is also a compound that plays a huge role in the regulation of behavior such as motivation, inspiration, and pleasure. So actually, anandamide triggers the dopamine in your brain, the happy drug that we've all got sitting in our brain. It also contains levels of caffeine. So it actually has the ability to have that regulation of the energy you want. Now, unlike coffee, where you can have a coffee hit, get a spike and drop out, the way the caffeine releases in cacao is actually more of a slow release process. So you actually can have energy for much longer through the day. But I'm going to get into that when we get into part 3 in a couple of weeks' time. So in very simple terms, cacao is a very ancient, revered plant medicine that has the power to provide energy, motivation, and happiness. That's why I love it. There's one last thing to be aware of, and that is where you source your cacao from. Over 70% of the global cacao production is actually in West Africa. It's grown and harvested in extremely unethical ways, and I really want to emphasize that unethical ways. I'm going to cover a lot of that next week in part 2, so really listen in. If you're sourcing cacao, then ensure you do the research and buy either direct from the farmer, or you actually go from a supplier who has already visited and works directly with those farmers. For me, the places to get cacao from are somewhere in Mesoamerica, so Middle America, Guatemala, Peru are really known for great places to get it, very ethical reasons, and you can go direct to the actual people who farm it and actually produce the paste for you. Or where we get it from is from Samoa, and we actually know the people that we source it from, it's actually their relatives that produce it from Samoa, and again, they know it's done organically and they know it's actually done ethically, which is great. Now, the other thing too is fair trade labels on packaging. Please be very, very careful. In some cases, that is just a license. So it's actually someone being able to prove something, and through licensing or paying a licensing fee, they can put on fair trade. There is no guarantee that any profits or any money goes back to where it's produced, or that within that people that they're actually getting paid the right levels of wages and the right amounts. So again, it's all about having to do your research on it. So that's what cacao is all about. Great history. 5,000 years, was used all through the Mayan, Olmecs, Aztecs, Toltecs. So you can go back thousands of histories. It was seen as gold. It was seen as nectar of the gods, if you like. It was held in very spiritual terms, and there's a lot that actually runs with that. I'm going to talk in detail a bit more about how I had that ritual in part 3. So I just want to say that's it about cacao. Next week I'm going to be talking about chocolate, how it's actually produced and how there is a difference between cacao and chocolate, the unethical practice that takes place. So, however, even if you're interested, in the meantime, you just want to have a chat about cacao, you know where to find me. Obviously on Instagram, LinkedIn, jump in, just find me. Happy to have a chat, happy to point you to where you can ethically buy cacao and that. I promised to do 5 minutes. We're at 5:46, coming in the 6-minute mark. Not too bad for me anyway. So I'm going to wrap it up for now. Much love and peace. This is Milvo, and part 2 coming your way next week.